Thunder broke, the lightning flashed. It seemed like it was about to destroy Boer. But no baby, the beast just used a fan of its forelimbs to make Sunsu lose his head and fall to the ground, spitting blood from his mouth, his eyes turning white as if he were dead. The terrifyingly large foot finally appeared in front of him. Sunsu was aware that death was coming, so tears and nose began to flow. He was so scared that the blood vessels in his eyes were swollen. Kong Ji-yu was very satisfied. He raised the corner of his mouth and counted 5. But that wasn't Sunsu, it was a girl with white skin and soft flesh who abandoned her fate and left Sunsu falling with her butt in the air. Boer happily munched his prey right in front of Sunsu in the quiet hallway with only the sound of munching. Blue-haired Kua breathed heavily when he saw his teammate's hand fall down, but suddenly someone lifted it up. Thinking that the monster was about to die, Sunsu bitterly gritted his teeth and furrowed his eyebrows to prepare himself. But nothing happened. Only one thing made him extremely surprised. That weak coward was calmly riding on the monster's head. Kangoo's feet gently stepped on the fur of Boer's shoes, kindly helping Sunsu understand the problem. With only 5 preys a day, Boer is full and does not move unless attacked first, like it is now yawning and sleeping. Wanting to destroy this demonic beast is as easy as pie? Quickly take out a pen and paper and write down that I'm only a one-time sample. Kangoo's left hand activates the power of darkness. His right hand activates the flames of hell. Then clasping his hands together to create a new power is enough to finish Boer. Even though Sunsu is doing a handstand, his eagerness to learn is still number 1. Open your eyes to see Kangoo show off his true strength. Instead of wasting a lot of energy to use many powers at the same time, Kangoo thought of a way to mix them together. The 2 powers, which were seemingly unrelated to each other, became extremely harmonious with Kangoo's ability to control them. He stomped his feet and jumped up to make it look majestic. Kangoo's hand pressed them together into a ball that was half red, half blue. On the other side, he summoned a trident imbued with power and molded into its tip. Gritting his teeth, he focused his strength on the top of the beast's head when the system informed that Kangoo had successfully obtained the trident skill. The padding system adds precision when striking, so Kangoo's jab falls exactly on the sleeping monster's head, straight down to grip its thick tongue. The demonic beast's screams of agony echoed throughout the hallway, but quickly died out as they were burned in the ferocious hellfire. Boer struggled for only a moment and then died immediately. When he landed, the system announced that he had successfully defeated the B-rank monster and increased it to level 40, opening the 5th awakening. What's even more interesting is that Kangoo's magic power index has reached 60 and the condition of demon deferral has been met. The others didn't say anything. Kangoo noticed the so-called super devil delay that sounded like a martial arts novel without understanding what it was. The board shows that reaching 60 magic power is the first condition, but it doesn't say what the 2 to 3 conditions are to achieve the ultimate demon. Kangoo squeezed his chin and thought, the extremely demonic delay calling system was the first step to becoming a strange demon lord. In 10,000 years in hell, he had never heard of this term, and the hypothesis he made before was correct without needing to be adjusted. If he continued to level up as a player, he could become stronger than when he was the demon king in hell. Hell. Thinking so, Kangoo stroked his chin, revealing an extremely excited expression. He thought he had given up his greedy habit. Who would have thought that God had given him the power to refuse? For now, just use your gluttony to absorb Boer first, and the magic power of a hellish beast poured into his body will increase by 4 points. But this time Kangoo will only absorb its magic power and not scrape out its bones like usual. Many people out there were still waiting for him to report the monster incident. There must be some reasonable concealment for the declaration to be trustworthy. While enjoying the feast of abundant magical power, Sunsu's moans from behind reached Kangoo's ears. His eyes narrowed dangerously, almost forgetting that there was still only one left. Based on Sunsu's impulsive personality, he thought he would be the first to die. And yet he's still alive, proving that this guy has some biting talent. Don't come here. Blue-haired Kua screamed in fear, her eyes downcast filled with worry and stammered, asking if he wanted to kill her. Hey, why would I kill a member of the group? My hand gently held Sunsu's leg. This guy still had useful value, so I couldn't let him die here. Then he smiled friendly and stood up, wanting to ask Sunsu a few questions, hoping he would cooperate in answering. Who the hell ordered you to attack me? Just the first sentence made Sunsu speechless, tense and not knowing what to say. The reason Kangoo thought that someone was pulling the strings behind the scenes was because the guy with the blue hair and he didn't know each other. Yet that guy knew clearly who he was. Someone must have fed him that information. Although he had been thinking about it for a long time, Sunsu still kept his mouth shut and refused to open up. Kangoo threw a kick at the guy, causing his weak body to shoot into the air. Being kicked by Kangoo, Sunsu flew straight into the nearby wall, causing a large hole in it. After a while of punching and kicking, Kangoo coldly asked again, "Who is that person?" Sungsu's face was so bruised that he had to obediently say Kim Jang-ho-on's name. Isn't this the guy they just mentioned? But why the hell would someone like that have to pick a fight with him? Later, it was discovered that Kim Jang-ho-on once invited Cha Eun-jo on a luxurious date but was flatly rejected. From then on, the feud between the two groups began to rekindle. If only I could invite her out for iced tea, on the sidewalk, or to hang out. Maybe we would be a cute couple by now. Just because of that stupid reason, the rich bastard dared to vent his anger on me. Kangoo madly grabbed Sungsu's hair, causing him to scream in pain and tell more. Kim Jang-ho-on wants to change the image of the Mia group, wants to become the center of attention and surpass Red Rose in every aspect. Kangoo did not expect the vice president to have such pathetic thoughts. Forcing the blue-haired guy to open the other guy's photo for him to see, Sungsu tremblingly turned on his broken phone and gave it to Kangoo to check the goods. Just glanced at him and complimented him on how handsome he was. But this face looks quite similar to Kim Si-hun. Maybe it's because they're both handsome that they look alike. Wondering about those things didn't help. Kangoo immediately let go of the phone, suddenly getting caught up in this revenge plot, making him feel a bit uncomfortable. Sungsu was so scared that he was just following orders, not interested in any of these things. Kangoo tilted the guy's head to face him and told him not to be so vain. He was clearly enjoying that feeling. Sungsu stopped arguing and could only mumble in his throat, thinking he was about to die. Unexpectedly, Kangoo suddenly kindly told him to just obediently do as he said. 9 times a day, 10 times a day. His distorted face immediately relaxed. As long as I can keep my life, I will listen to you in everything. Kangoo smiled brightly and said, "You're smart, this is easy." A moment later, the reporters were in an uproar when they saw Kangoo helping Sungsu out, but the other members were nowhere to be seen. They immediately rushed to the two people and asked, "What happened inside the dungeon? Are the other people in the team dead?" With a series of questions coming out like a shot, Kangoo opened his mouth, took a deep breath and then roared pitifully. "Emergency? Someone please call an ambulance." Sung Su's bloody face hit straight into the reporter's mirror. Laying him down on the ground, Kangoo turned on the actor and, in front of the news hunters, used a trembling voice to narrate the story. Sung Su risked his life to fight the monster, which is why he was so seriously injured. Making an expression of sadness and despair when talking about his fallen comrades, making everyone extremely stunned. How strong is that monster? Everyone was confused and tried to contact the Hwajiang squad but was stopped by Kangoo, who skillfully placed his hand on Sung Su's weak beak calling for help. Kangoo showed an extremely respectful expression and said, "The hero who saved my life and killed the monster inside is Kim Sung-su." No one knew about the green-haired boy eating onions, but when he came out here, Kangoo added salt and salt to become a hero that thousands of people loved. The news-hungry reporters immediately asked Kangoo to narrate in detail. He pretended to wipe away tears and then wrote a tragic story. The moment they entered the dungeon, the whole group was suffocated by the monster's intense aura. It was waiting right at the entrance. Such a dangerous monster could not appear at the B-rank gate. The whole group planned to run away, but Mr. Sung-su rallied everyone's spirits and could not let this monster escape and harm the people outside. So we stayed and lived with the alum monster. It was exactly like the government's description, a lion's head with 5 legs running as fast as the wind. In addition, the monster's actions were extremely cruel. so all of Sung Su's teammates were wiped out with just one attack. The situation became more and more tense. Mr. Sung Su protected me and let me run away, then fought the vicious monster himself. I could have run away, but I was too scared to death, so I just stood there and witnessed the extremely fierce battle. In the end, victory belonged to the righteous side. Mr. Sung Su defeated the monster. From that moment on, he kept calling out the names of his comrades who died in battle. Even now, it's the same, everyone. Kong Ji-yu skillfully drowned out the blue-haired man's hopeless cry for help, using the excuse of wanting to save Mr. Sung Su's strength and covering his mouth. A reporter suddenly asked about Sung Su's rather rude behavior towards Kong Woo, but it's not easy to make things difficult for an A-list actor like him. That day explained when we entered the gate that he knew my level was still weak, so he wanted me to be on high alert. The acting level is so superior that it makes you cry a stream of crocodile tears. Kong Woo tearfully said that Sung Su was his benefactor and the true hero of this era. His family was not at the stage, but his acting was so terrible that later that day, a series of large and small newspapers reported praising Kong Sung Su. A brave hero sacrifices himself to protect his people. Although Kong Sung Su later lived in a vegetative state due to a brain hemorrhage, people will always remember him as a hero. Eun-jo at the headquarters of the Red Rose Society read a few articles related to blue hair but couldn't believe it. Looking horizontally and vertically, it doesn't look like the wound was caused by a monster, but by a human. Eun-jo frowned and wondered what that bastard Kong Woo was doing. Her worry was evident on her face, causing the blonde girl sitting across from her to laugh excitedly at the new soldier. President Yeonju of the Sanair Association crossed her long, sexy legs, repeatedly asking Eun-jo where she could find such an interesting new soldier. The red-haired mother didn't even bother to answer and sent the old woman away, causing Yeonju to get angry, saying it was her who was the old man. Then immediately changed the subject to a mutated monster probably caused by a demonic cult, making Eun-jo stiffen. Quietly stirring the cup of tea in Yeonju's hand, she looked worried. She was worried that the cults were so active that sooner or later outsiders would know about their existence. If even the 5 major festivals cannot stop the church from sacrificing that person, the world will fall into chaos and chaos again. Yeonju took a sip. Her eyes looked towards Eun-jo, who was burning with extreme anger. It seemed that just by mentioning the demonic cult, her calmness disappeared. At that moment, the door to the room was suddenly pulled open and Kong Ji-yu appeared without warning and suddenly opened the door as if there was no one there. Yeonju saw that the new recruit waved as if he was real. Kong Ji-yu also politely greeted back and asked who she was. Just a friend of Eun-jo. After saying that, Yeonju put down the cup of tea and was about to leave. Kong Ji-yu thought he came at the wrong time, so he told her to stay. Her mouth said she had something to do, but when she passed by Kong Ji-yu, she looked at him with sharp eyes and made him blush. She looked so old, how could she be called her? But as soon as she got to the door, Yeonju glanced worriedly at her friend Eun-jo behind her. As soon as Kong Ji-yu put his butt down on the chair, he asked Eun-jo who it was. But she just said it was a friend of hers and then took out a card and gave it to Kong Ji-yu. This is the S-Class pass he requested. So fast? What a wonderful power the Red Rose has. Eun-jo pulled down her hat to hide her expression, telling him to stop hunting there for peace of mind. If it comes to that, Kong Ji-yu is no longer joking. Honestly admitted that he overheard the conversation between the redhead and her father just now. Eun-jo calmly poured water to make tea without showing anything else. Anyway, sooner or later I have to tell him about this. Hearing Kong Ji-yu act like he didn't know anything about the pagan cults, Eun-jo immediately explained that this is a sick, perverted church that specializes in using people to sacrifice in certain rituals. I don't understand why they've been unusually active lately. No one knows how long they have existed or how large they are. The society is working with the government to hunt them down. But 5 associations only worked with Red Rose, while the other 4 associations knew the news but pretended to be deaf. Huh, why did you do that? To increase the guild's reputation? Eun-jo doesn't deny, Red Rose never does anything for free. In a monotonous voice, she said that Red Rose initially helped the government because of a sum of money that was placed after the teachers were driven out. But when it was mentioned that many members had died while on duty, Eun-jo's murderous aura filled the entire room. With this tense attitude of hers, Kang Ji-yu guessed that quite a few members had died. So this is the power of a true rancor. Just by looking at it you can feel Eun-jo's terrible killing intent. It was really strong, so strong that he wanted to fight her right here, but he had to put that aside first. Because it seems like Eun-jo wants to use her strength to control the heretics. Eun-jo does not deny it, but up to now there is still no more information about the heretics. At the same time, there was a serious staff shortage, so she didn't tell Kang Ji-yu at first. But when she raised her sharp eyes and looked at Kang Ji-yu, she asked him to make a decision right away. If she didn't want to, it was okay, as long as she told her the way ahead. From beginning to end, Kang Ji-yu sat as still as a statue, his face not showing any emotion. Even if he and Red Rose have the same goal, Kang Ji-yu doesn't want to tell Eun-jo how happy he is. He picked up the card she had just given him, looked at it for a while, then put it in his shirt. Don't worry, at least I'm loyal to the person who helps me a lot. Eun-jo widened her eyes in surprise at his decision, then breathed a sigh of relief when she had another powerful assistant. Caught in a trap, Kang Ji-yu smiled internally. I already have it all planned out. Every time he interferes with that evil cult's plot, he receives free magic power. Why wouldn't he agree? If Red Rose smells anything, Kang Ji-yu will have news soon. But Eun-jo is still the one who needs to remind him not to hunt in the S-gate anymore. Kang Ji-yu drove the new blue car he bought from Red Rose to leave the headquarters. Suddenly the system appeared with a notification that the Fifth Awakening characteristic is a rank S Monster Master. Kang Ji-yu can summon magical beasts from another dimension. The more magical power he uses, the stronger the magical beast becomes. They will accept the summoner as their master, but can only summon a demonic beast once within 3 months. Because of such a long time limit, Kang Ji-yu decided to summon the strongest one right now. If his hypothesis is correct, the gates act as a bridge between Earth and other dimensions. The higher the level of the gate, the stronger the monsters passing through. The demonic beasts in Hell entered Earth through what are called space rifts. If so, this skill will also work according to that mechanism. The power of the summoned beast will coincide with the level of the space portal. After thinking for a while, Kang Ji-yu decided to use his new skill here, at the S-level gate. This is the S-level gate in Suwon guarded by the first team of the Hwajiang detachment, different from the low-level gates. There are no players around here, only guards and an extremely secure security system. Even the player card scanner is equally good. Kang Ji-yu is sweating profusely due to the strict security here. If it weren't for the protection of the Red Rose, he wouldn't have dared to come here. Nervously stepping into the teleportation gate, I didn't know what was waiting for me inside. The bright scene inside was completely different from Kang-gu's imagination. In front of him was the blue sea, white sand, and golden sunshine. This place was so wide that the horizon could not be seen. If there were no monsters here, this place would be fine as a resort. After wandering around exploring for a while, he stopped in a corner, preparing to summon magical beasts for the first time. Kang Ji-yu secretly hoped it was a 3-headed dog. It looked a bit ugly but was stronger than the 3rd-level devil in Hell. But if there's another one, he can still handle it. No matter how stupid he is, he'll all be smarter in this guy's hands. Kang Ji-yu immediately closed his eyes and concentrated his energy, activating the skill to summon S-rank magical beasts. Strong explosive demon energy radiated from the side, lifting his body up high. Kang Ji-yu tried to gather all his magic into this skill, gritting his teeth to control the huge source of power. Magic power swirled loudly in the air, lightning bolts continuously appeared in the sky. The notification system was ready to create a rift for summoning. Cold sweat continuously poured out like rain, but his eyes were burning with determination. Kang Ji-yu unleashed all his pent-up magic power into one final blow, successfully creating a slight summoning crack. The system suddenly announced that a larger crack was created due to the magic power from tens of thousands of SSS rank magic cores. Looking at the green color radiating from Kong Ji-yu, he was a bit confused because he had never seen a gate with that color. The notice board appeared again. Due to an error in the Gaia system, the connection to the other world could not be stopped, opening a portal to the Un-no continent. Kong Ji-yu didn't know where the hell that was. He closed his eyes in front of the extremely strong light shining down, secretly hoping that nothing was wrong. God, don't push the river of hell. The system announced that the summoning of magical beasts had been successful, so he dared to open his eyes, screaming at the swallow, thinking he was going to visit his grandparents. The blue light gradually dissipated to reveal a clear sky. Kong Ji-yu was standing on something soft with claws as sharp as knives. In front of me is a super huge dragon covered in injuries crawling out of the gate. According to the information provided by the system, she is the daughter of Ma Long Gagas. The rank S egg-laying dragon Iona became Kong Gu's first pet. Before he could even greet him, he realized that there was something wrong with the pet's interface. It seemed like someone had just been grooming and looking after it. Covered in blood, it's quite impressive for a first appearance. Who did such a feat of cosplaying for you? It's probably the chaotic crowd that's taking turns taking attendance from that crack. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 leopards, but what sound are they making? He hates foreign languages and foreign languages come to him. Besides Korean and the roar in hell, Kong Ji-yu actually can't understand any other language. Even so, he seemed genuinely panicked. According to his logical deduction, since the gates opened, there has been no such outfit in Korea. This group looks like they came out of some fantasy world. Well, I know that I will win 100 battles and win 100 battles. Kong Ji-yu tried to search his memory to see which item would help him understand the foreign language and wondered what the group of strangers were discussing. Wow, there really is a skill that allows Kong Ji-yu to communicate with people who don't speak the same language, which is using the power of Google. As a result, the first sentence Kong Ji-yu heard was that they wanted to kill his newly summoned pet. Wait, they said his pet is literally about to die so it can no longer harm anyone. What the hell, that dragon was very difficult for him to summon, and without even saying a word of greeting, this group of people killed him. Playing the role of a friendly beauty queen, Kong Ji-yu approached and proactively started a conversation, and the young blonde swordsman enthusiastically introduced himself as Renner von Aaron, the third prince of the Aaron Empire. He had actually never heard of Eleanor's territory or the Aaron Empire. Approaching this name, Kong Ji-yu clearly realized that they were indeed not from Earth. This Renner's subordinates included both elves and dwarfs. After hearing it, he nodded superficially, basically not knowing what was going on, but the important thing was that he couldn't let the newly summoned pet die like that. Kong Ji-yu walked up to the dragon, used the power of resurrection to hold the aura of excitement and successfully revive the dead pet. The wounds on the dragon's body from head to ass closed up. The blonde-haired brat Renner, witnessing this, shouted majestically, "What are you doing, man?" Suddenly he stopped when he heard Kong Ji-yu whispering. He was responding to its thanks with a friendly pat on the head. Kong Ji-yu felt that the dragon was trying to communicate with him through his subconscious. He felt very sorry for appearing with such a pathetic appearance, protecting his pet from behind his sword. Renner gently touched his neck. He roared in question, "Are you the master of this devilish dragon?" Kong Ji-yu glanced over the blade and calmly asked Renner, "Why do they want to kill his pet?" Renner screamed again. Interrogating Kong Ji-yu asked Ngu, "Do you not know anything about this dragon? It is said to be a brutal demon that caused catastrophic drought and plague, because of this demon dragon and its magic, of which countless inhabitants of the Aaron Empire lost their lives." Unexpectedly, the dragon now directly said through the ability to transfer consciousness that he was wronged. Kong Ji-yu stood aside and agreed, then turned to explain to Renner that a dragon with the ability to cause epidemics and natural disasters must be a god, and certainly would not be beaten to the point of being injured and left gasping for air. "I never asked to live like this." But the stoned third prince Renner denied everything, insisted on blaming all the blame on the dragon, and even acted like a hero, vowing to kill it to save the suffering of the empire. And the type of brat who always speaks of kindness is the type he hates the most, because in the end, that is the person who only cares about his own justice. closes his eyes to explanations and attacks others. Oppose yourself. Kang Ji-yu knew that this kid would have to explain too much and would only waste enzymes, so without hesitation he used his explosive power to give Renner a time bomb. But why is that yellow-haired guy so unlucky? He was attacked directly but was still able to dodge the attack without any harm. In Kong Gu's heart, perhaps this evil dragon was the beginning of the drought and plague that still devastated the Alan Empire, but so what? His whole body was burning with murderous aura, telling Iona that he would back her up and would absolutely not abandon the identity he had summoned. The words warmed the dragon's wounded heart, causing him to shed tears, but at the same time successfully angered Renner. Renner spoke in a low voice and scolded Kang Ji-yu for being an evil demon. Yes, he was a demon and a demon king who had been in hell playing around for about 10,000 years. The brat Renner was furious and did not hesitate to scold Kang Ji-yu. So the whole group of people there unanimously vowed to destroy Kang Ji-yu at all costs. And this made him feel so funny because they looked like a bunch of kids who had just run away. At the beginning of the fight, Renner swung his sword, causing an explosion that hit the enemy directly in the face. Kang Ji-yu, because he despised the enemy, chose to attack and was fortunate to be equipped with good armor so his body did not have any scratches. To gain the upper hand in the once-in-a-lifetime battle, Kang Ji-yu unleashed his explosive power and adaptive skills, creating an earthquake that knocked Renner's entire team away. While they were panicking due to the loss of gravity, he continued to use the surging heat wave to summon countless guillotine-shaped flames. Although the attack was blocked by the tanker using an iron shield, Kang Ji-yu successfully found an opening to separate Renner from the team's protection. From here, the one-on-one solo between the two men officially begins. The young Renner, strong as an ox, continuously swung his sword to attack him without tiring. The two of them attacked, the other defended, one used a sword, the other used a knife, continuously rushing at each other, leaving no one else a chance to break in. Renner was furious, Aaron's swordsmanship was fully awakened, the storm swept. His hand unleashed a slashing technique that created a tornado that looked sparkling with light. Kang Ji-yu immediately used the skill to retreat to a defensive position, making Renner's touch enough, knocking him back far away. Kang Ji-yu hit the ground and didn't understand that this kid couldn't keep quiet and fought. Shouting out the name of the move was so funny. Holding the glowing sword, Renner angrily rushed 4 people to the enemy and chopped it down with a loud resounding sound. He turned around and closed in on Kang Ji-yu who had just escaped, continuously swinging his sword to force him back more and more. Kang Ji-yu concentrated with all his might on using the 2 blades in his hand to counter Renner's slashes, then shot his body far away as the attack exploded and plowed the ground. Kang Gu's face showed rare tension for the first time after flirting with each other. If he hadn't awakened for the 5th time, he might have been in danger with this Renner. On the other side, Renner excitedly laughed at Kang Ji-yu, who saw the devil. Okay, I understand, you're good, you're the strongest, and you're also very honest. He decided to apply whichever tactic to win. As soon as Kang Ji-yu shouted loudly the name of the technique he successfully slashed, luring the opponent to raise his hand to block the attack. He immediately launched a vicious kick from behind his elbow, causing Renner to collapse in pain. Renner hugged his legs and trembled, cursing the dirty toy. You clearly said you would cut. Hearing this complaint, Kang Ji-yu could only smile evilly. Believe it or not, thanks to the trick of turning left and turning right, Kang Ji-yu successfully gained the upper hand and won against Renner at the last minute. Knowing that he couldn't defeat Kang Ji-yu, Renner immediately shouted that they were too strong and they couldn't actually fight him, so he asked his teammates to run away and decided to sacrifice himself heroically in this place, becoming Kang. Ji-yu laughed. No, how can we do that? Oh Prince, please forgive your cursed sister. On one side, the blue-haired girl shouted. On the other side, the blonde-haired guy showed his deep affection and tried to chase away his accomplices. Those denials, just like in the movie, made Kang Ji-yu feel nauseous, so he kicked Renner to the ground, finished reading the damn thing, then finish it. For Kang Ji-yu, fighting is always the same. He searches and kills to survive, never having to think about anyone. Because in hell, emotions are a luxury, let alone sympathy or kindness. He doesn't even have anger. To be more precise, he was like a cold-blooded animal before the killing scene. Right before Kang Ji-yu was about to strike, the beautiful saintess knelt down to stop him. He half closed his eyes and looked down, listening to him beg to let him die instead of Prince Renner. If there was any fate that day, the empire would definitely collapse. Tears would be short and long, she added. He is the person I love the most. Renner endured the pain and leaned over, trying to stop him but couldn't. The holy woman sincerely apologized to Renner for expressing her feelings in the situation, wanting to exchange her life for the prince's life and do everything Kang Ji-yu asked. Ah, is this noble sentiment frozen in the summer? Kang Gu's face turned cold, telling her to stop acting like that useless sacrifice. What if the kingdom collapses when this Renner dies? What does it have to do with your father? You guys started this war. If Dad loses, you guys will let me live. Quote. He showed a disgusted face, having raised his weapon to kill. He had to prepare himself to bleed to death and throw away all the nonsense from the cheap movies shown on TV. You bastards. The idiot Renner scolded Kang Ji-yu in an unreasonable manner. So wouldn't a group of them rushing to fight a lone person be a more cowardly action? Feeling like he was using his saliva to explain to his children, Kang Ji-yu decided to use a group to send the whole team off to the drudgery area. At the moment of identification, the Gare system suddenly announced that it had detected entities other than the summoned monster. Kang Ji-yu looked at them as they were fading as if they were about to disappear, so he quickly wanted to strip off the luxurious armor of the golden dragon Renner as a prize. They come from another world, so even if you kill them, there will be no harm. But the Gare system had already eliminated the Renner group, making Kang Ji-yu feel regretful. Is the world quiet again? Kang Ji-yu quickly got rid of his grief and worried that the dragon might also be eliminated. He rushed to the beach to check, but luckily it was still lying there. At this point, Kang Ji-yu began to wonder what the Gare system was. Did it have a protection feature to prevent outside intrusion? When I first arrived on Earth, there were a few messages mentioning the Gare system. If it was a self-operating system, then the recent appearance of electric hell monsters could have been due to an error. Remembering the appearance of the crack fragments about 3 weeks ago, Kang Ji-yu suddenly remembered that was the time he crossed Gare's barrier to log into Earth. Kang Ji-yu sat down, scratching his head and cursing to himself. Oh my god. I just want to eat kimchi stew. Is there any way to fix my mistake? Iona saw that the boss looked like he was about to go crazy and bit him, so he raised his eyes and asked the others if they had left yet. After leaving, thank you sincerely to bring your boss back to reality. It was indeed effective. Kang Ji-yu quickly put that aside and focused on treating the dragon. After asking Iona to shrink, Kang Ji-yu took it away. On the bus Iona told about the Un-no continent, which was another world where people knew how to use swords and magic, a world filled with spirits, monsters and dragons. Iona shrunk to the size of a puppy, raised her neck and asked where the owner was taking her. The house and place of residence spoken out of Kang Gu's mouth made the dragon think it was a big nest. The nest is fine, he sounds very excited. Sella and I's nesting place sounds so cozy. I don't know if the dragon's thoughts are different or not. He blushed and whispered that no one had ever lived with him. Since the disappearance of the dragon father, Iona spent most of her time reading books and living alone in the forest. Those lonely and gloomy days passed until Renner and the others accused her. I didn't do anything. I kept saying I was wronged but no one believed me. Master, do you believe me? Iona's pitiful eyes and trembling made Kang Ji-yu remember his past. Remember that he grew up in an orphanage and did not receive love or trust from anyone. Being cared for and having someone acknowledge your existence has turned out to be a luxury since childhood. In the end, Kang Ji-yu could not hide his sympathy. He directly patted Iona's head to comfort her pet. Even if the whole world doesn't believe it, at least rest assured because I still have her. The answer made Iona stop crying. The overwhelming feeling of happiness made the hurt in her heart a lot less. Oh Kang Ji-yu, your name. I will definitely remember it. Sella is almost crazy with Iona's cuteness. Even though she knew it was a dragon monster, she still hugged it so tightly that Kang Ji-yu, who was devouring a pot of kimchi stew, had to stop scooping and doubt life. Tighten the dragon monster and rub it back and forth like a real pet. Sella scared Iona so much that she opened her claws and clung towards Kang Ji-yu. He noticed that the dragon's power seemed to decrease with its size, looking exactly like a helpless puppy that had been pampered too much. How are the team members doing, Sella? Is training going okay? She replied that everything was fine. The team leveled up very quickly and would soon awaken for the third time and enter Gate C soon. Oppa Kangwa. Sella with affectionate eyes thanked her for helping her find teammates and giving her sincere advice. If it weren't for Oppa, I probably wouldn't be able to have this dream life. The thanks and feelings that Sella brought made Kangoo lean back for a moment, lowered his eyes, and softly said that he was the one who should be thanking. Turns out this is the feeling of being loved by someone. At that time, Sella asked permission to sleep with Iona. Kangoo on the surface said it was okay, but inside he was secretly jealous. I'm not saying Kangoo is screaming inside. She can sleep with owner Iona if she wants to. The next morning, Kangoo didn't open his eyes until the sun shone directly on his face. He felt strangely tired today. Sella was startled to see that just yesterday, Oppa was still handsome, like he just got out of rehab. Sella worriedly asked him last night. He was sleepwalking last night. He was drifting in and out of the corner. Did he sleep well last night? Kangoo answered yes, but when someone other than himself called Sella, he was startled to see a strange lolly in his house. Looking at this appearance, why did he still not believe that the little pet turned into a little girl overnight? Iona said that last night while sleeping he felt very uncomfortable all over his body, then when he woke up he was in animal form. Connecting the events together, Kangoo thinks that the transformation of Iona's body is the reason why his body is weak. Looking at the little girl slyly peeking at the food next to him, he hoped it could return to its dragon form, hoping its power wouldn't be sealed like his. But to make sure Iona could transform back into a dragon, Kangoo asked it to try transforming again. Iona immediately followed orders, spreading her wings wide and blowing away the tables and chairs as if a hurricane had come to her house. Kangoo looked at his cute face full of fangs and had to scream, "Stop, stop." Iona's window shattered, causing a terrible commotion in the living room. Moments later, the two adults with sweaty heads looked at little Iona sobbing and apologizing. In short, you can transform into a human and a dragon, right? The house was destroyed by this baby dragon, but the gentle Sella was better than the Buddha. She just patted her head and told her not to transform at will. Kangoo didn't know what to say. He just chimed in and told him to integrate into human society. He realized that when this girl recognized him as her master, she must have been somewhat influenced by him, causing things like today to happen. But looking at the way Iona asked for permission to bring stones so Sella could fix the house, he suddenly realized that this girl spoke human language fluently. This childish look is also good. Kangoo will easily take it out when needed. Sella didn't need Iona to pick up the stones because she had already called a worker to fix it. She was excited to invite Kangoo to go shopping for clothes with her. The reason is that Iona needs clothes that her childhood clothes don't seem to fit. Iona was so excited, she almost forgot the shocking incident just now and opened her eyes to let Kangoo go with her. Facing the extremely urgent eyes of the two girls, Kangoo felt embarrassed because he still had work to do, so he had to leave. Thinking Oppa was out hunting, Sella advised him to rest for a day, but Kangoo actually had something to do in the city. After a while of bargaining, the whole group finally decided to go it alone, and the important place that Kangoo wanted to go to was the owner of the Red Rose clan. So he opened the gate leading to the Illanar continent and summoned the dragon as his subordinate. Then the bunch of kids who mistakenly came from the Illanar continent were due to a mistake in the Gyre system. After learning that Kangoo's subordinate had turned into a human, she asked if he wanted the guild to help make identification for it. Kangoo immediately confirmed that this was what he wanted to ask and asked Che Eun-jo about the Gyre system. But even someone as well informed as her said she didn't know anything about it. During the conversation, Kangoo kept looking at his phone because he and Sella were choosing clothes for Iona from afar. Looking at their happy faces through the phone screen, a smile suddenly appeared on Kangoo's face. Then returning to the president's question, what the hell is your identity that you can summon a dragon as a subordinate? Never mind that Kangoo was complimenting Iona's full dinosaur outfit on how cute it was. Eun-jo shook her head, not knowing which anonymous high-ranking person she was actually helping. He glanced at the president, saying that he could use it as an ID, right? Kangoo was enthusiastically planning to continue discussing when someone familiar was heard from outside, Park Hwa-eun, the captain of the Hwa-jeong army. Seeing a guest, she politely greeted her, realizing that this was the new sponsor of Red Rose. Kangoo wondered if he had done something wrong that Hwa-jeong came here at this hour. After a warm handshake, she remembered meeting Kangoo at the C-rank gate some time ago. He was so angry that Eun-jo heard that. Did Kangoo go there to beat someone? But Park Hwa-eun praised Kangoo as a gentleman, making Eun-jo feel nauseous. In order not to disturb the conversation between the two women, Kangoo immediately asked about entering the S-rank gate. Eun-jo looked at him and saw that he wasn't being lazy, and felt even more pain in his head. Why does this hunter want to hunt at that gate again? You also know what appears at the rank S Su-wol portal, right? Of course Kangoo knew. He held up 3 fingers and said, the ferocious yellow wave-en monster. Huge, huge mountain, huge and huge. Eun-jo continued to tell him that the final boss was the monster El Cuero in the lake. So she pulled the hat closer to show that it was not something that would be easy to wear, and told Kangoo not to go near that place. Hearing Kangoo agree so easily, Park Hwa-eun was surprised because just a few weeks ago Kangoo was only a C-rank player. Eun-jo didn't know how to explain this, so she could only tell Park Hwa-eun should believe in his talent. The recognition from Park Hwa-eun and Eun-jo made him extremely complacent, his nose elongated just like Pinocchio. This kind of thing makes the captain of Hwa-jeong admire this guy in his chair. Eun-jo looked at his complacent look and just wanted to sigh, not knowing if she was holding Kangoo inside or he was holding her. Raising his head, Eun-jo said that from tomorrow he could start hunting at the S-rank gate but reminded him again and again to be very careful. Kangoo showed his obedience and left the room, before Hwa-eun sat down on the chair. The captain glanced over and asked her what she was doing. Is it likely because the cultists have new information? She furrowed her eyebrows and said it wasn't there yet, but it was coming soon. Eun-jo said she heard stories about government spies successfully blending into evil cults. But according to Hwa-eun, that agent had recorded video evidence, which needed to be delivered to the contact point but could not be sent. It is said that the situation was quite tense. The agent was always in a state of anxiety, so Hwa-eun's side could not contact much. Eun-jo bent down, wanting to know where to deliver the video. When she heard about the singing station, in Suwon, she suddenly remembered that place was near the S-class gate where Kangoo was coming tomorrow. Tada, doesn't it look nice? As soon as Iona saw Kangoo come home, she immediately showed off the outfit that Sella's mother had just bought for her. He put on his coat and complimented her happily, spinning 7-7-4-9 around. Loli was really happy. She jumped up happily and thanked Sella for helping her match the beautiful fashion outfit. Preparations are complete. Today Kangoo will take Iona hunting. Sella sees them off to the door. They look just like a wife sending her husband and children off to work and school. Happiness is here. Hearing Kangoo say that he took Iona hunting at the rank S gate for the first time, she felt regretful in her heart because she always wanted to be strong enough to hunt with Kangoo. Sella, you're going hunting today too, right? I'll go hunting with you someday. I really want to go hunting with you. Now, great-grandfather, go see the Demon King who's been around for 10,000 years and learn. Hey. The bridge gently encouraged and promised that the hunting team would be successful, making Sella's heart skip a beat. No matter how much my heart flutters, the scene of Kangoo talking to Iona is also strangely cute and poetic. Sella's cheeks were red and she hesitantly responded, looking forward to that day. Finally, they said goodbye to each other and started their new day's journey. Before Kangoo and Iona arrived at Suwon Rank S, he told little Loli to remember 3 things. Firstly, do not go near the lake because there are no goby fish in the lake but very dangerous monsters. Second, the child only accepts support missions, so he cannot arbitrarily attack without orders. And finally, absolutely do not arbitrarily return to the form of a demonic beast to avoid the government's attention. Iona shouted yes, master, showing his readiness to fight, making him very satisfied. To start the hunt, Kangoo used his great eyesight to sense the vibrations of everything. He knew that there was a giant OGE very close, but he had to slow down and not break the rope to disturb the forest. Using seduction magic, Kangoo spread a seductive scent around, attracting the crazy ogre to rush towards him at lightning speed. Kangoo asked Iona again. When he confirmed that she was ready, he summoned the devil in 3 forms and unleashed his power of thousands of miles to rush out like lightning, causing his face to distort. Kangoo rose from under the monster's chin and rewarded the monster with a powerful punch. Who would have thought that what he had in his hand was not his chin, but the Ogi's reverse punch that kicked up the dust? He clenched his chin in discomfort when he saw that the monster did not collapse in the slightest. To make up for the lack of strength, Kangoo originally wanted to use speed to increase the power of his attacks. Unexpectedly, S-rank monsters are not average, the OGE can directly confront him without any hesitation. But fighting also requires the use of the brain, whoever has the biggest brain wins. While the OGE was only focusing on a useless arm wrestling match, Kangoo immediately summoned a black spear to jump onto its arm, and immediately gave the monster a tattoo piercing its skull, making it scream in pain. When the monster clenches its teeth, it decreases the pain and Rabbit's other hand grabbed his whole body. Kong Ji-yu quickly signaled Iona to quickly carry him. With a move called Dark Wind, Iona uses the power to summon a storm carrying lightning, using 1,000,000 volts of electricity to shock the Ogi's mouth. Amazing good job. After winning the victory, Kangoo used his demonic energy to create an electric current that went straight into the ogre's head. It looked like the hammer-shaped god Thor. It bounced up and down on the garlic and for a moment, only the belt was hissing and smoking due to burning too much fire. The next day, the system sent a message congratulating him on his ability and rank increasing 1 level. Looking at the OGE falling down, Kangoo wondered that other players often formed a party above level 65 to defeat this monster. But how could he have done it alone and increased it by 1 level, proving the difficulty of the monster? This is huge. Iona was extremely excited and ran over to interrupt his thoughts. She was waiting for Kangoo to praise her. The girl chirped and said it seemed like because she was summoned by a powerful master like Kangoo, she was stronger than when she asked about Unno's continent. Looking at the deep crack in the grass, Kangoo honestly thought this girl was not ordinary. Not yet in its original form, it was already this strong. If it could return to dragon form, hunting would definitely be a bountiful harvest. While the two were having a heated discussion, a flock of wyverns were caught by the scent of the bloody ogre and flew to surround them. Because the number of monsters was too large, 36 escape plans were the best plan, so he picked up Iona and prepared to use his super speed power to escape. These are also some plain teleportation skills, so you will be caught by them. As soon as he jumped out, Kangoo immediately used his skywings to flee. As expected, the wyverns who had been starving for a long time, when they saw their prey, their eyes lit up and determinedly wanted to follow Kangoo. If he could flash, they could flash too, causing Kangoo to turn around in the air to avoid being hit by the quack's beak. Iona discovered that her dress was torn when the wyverns opened their beaks to bite their master and servant. Its whole body trembled, emitting light that blinded Kangoo's eyes. It screamed angrily, gradually revealing its dragon form. How dare you, these bastards, tear up the dress Kangoo likes. The dragons, not understanding what was going on, ate a few cuts and spewed out thick black blood. Iona, while losing control, continuously attacked the wyverns as if they were hitting a few stickers. They were absent-mindedly asking each other why this big white dragon suddenly became so angry. The left wing threw punches, the right wing kicked, both hands and claws skewered the wyverns into worms, the wyverns were upside down and screamed loudly throughout the sky. Kangu's little girl danced so skillfully that he could only crouch to the side with an extremely speechless expression, glancing at the message the system sent congratulating his friend on scoring 1, 2, 3, 5, 7 wyverns. Looking at the way Iona handled a whole flock of wyverns like ants, it didn't look at all like the little white dragon that the brat Renner and his gang had run up and down the field. Kangu's red eyes became even more suspicious that this child was stronger than he thought. Look at how she roared after defeating the wyverns. Could it be that she's even stronger than him? When she regained consciousness, Iona discovered that she had passed out and woke up in Kangu's arms. They were still wandering around the gate. He looked at Iona's limp and pitiful appearance and asked if she was injured anywhere. He said no, wrapping his small arm around Kangu's body like he was drunk, saying he just didn't have any strength left. Hey, it seems you used too much strength to fight the wyverns, so as soon as you returned to your form, you fell unconscious. Iona looked around and looked at her torn clothes. Her clear eyes were sparkling with water. She must have been very sad. The new fashion outfit had only been worn for less than a day. As a responsible parent, Kangu comforted Iona not to worry about the clothes we will buy. There are many other clothes that suit her very well. The girl wanted to explain more, but saw her face change into a terrifying expression of hell. He said, I'll only remind you once. From now on don't transform without my permission. I really hate people who go crazy because they can't control their anger. Kangu's coldness made Iona immediately stop crying, frantically apologize and promise to never do wrong again, just asking him not to abandon her. Realizing that he couldn't help it but his hot temper threatened the overthinking baby, he quickly patted Iona's head and coaxed Iona that he wouldn't abandon her. Everyone had their first time, just don't do that in the future. Okay. To express his apology, Kangu promised to take Iona shopping for new clothes when they both went out. Being too strict with a child made him feel guilty, but getting mad in the middle of a match was an act that could not be ignored. Fortunately, the results were still good and he increased from level 41 to level 49. He admitted that he thought that Iona would be stronger when transformed into its original form, but he did not expect that it could defeat so many wyverns alone. Kangu opened and closed his hand and discovered that his magic power had disappeared. Looking down at Iona sleeping soundly, Kangu guessed that this girl was using her magic power to transform into human form. And when the dragon returns to its original form, it is still stronger than before, most likely because it has accepted the magic power of the owner who summoned the beast, which is him. So the future Iona can deploy greater power than before thanks to the magic power injection from Kangu. But if so, there is a high possibility that he himself will have his magic power reduced. If he thinks right, after Iona uses up all his magic power, both the Kangu master and servant will no longer be able to fight. As expected, the male bridge wisher saw Kangu break his words and make a terrifying growling sound behind him. From the forest, two giant ogres were rushing towards him for unknown reasons. Gently placing Iona against a tree, Kangu with bloodshot eyes decided to live with them. Who would have thought that as soon as he turned around, two strangers rushed in from nowhere, one kicked, the other cut. The common point is that they are extremely confident when they can take care of their ogre alone. The situation that occurred before his eyes was so unexpected that it left Kangu stunned on the spot. The two men landed lightly and immediately argued whether the monster just now was something Kangu wanted to kill. Let's see. According to Kangu's memory, the one wearing the cloak is Chemi Nayak, the president of the Rogue Guild Honore, and the other guy is the top player in Korea until now, the president of the Han Un Guild. What are you talking about? You obviously just want to live in obscurity, but why do you meet all these famous people? Kong Yun was extremely open, greeting people in various ways, guessing that Kangu was new so he was unclear about the dangerous situation inside. As for the remaining boss, he cordially offered to escort him and Ionera outside. Meanwhile, Che Maniac was not very friendly, he just stood there with his hands on his hips and watched. His eyes suddenly looked down at the monster he had just killed. He reached down and pulled up something emitting red light in the pile of blood and mucus. He did not say a word to anyone else. As soon as Kangoo separated from the dark-skinned man, he scratched his head and refused the good idea, saying that he had helped once and did not want to bother anyone anymore. Kang Yun finally gave up and left with Maniac, waiting for a while with something red in his hand. When Iona woke up again, Kangoo took her outside, and at the same time the two of them prepared to go to a children's clothing store that he found through the location on his phone. But there weren't many people living around the Rank S gate, so the path he found looked very shady. Suddenly Iona sat up and pointed forward, her eyes clearly showing seriousness. Kangoo, I smelled human blood that way. In another scene, a disguised spy can be seen infiltrating the demonic cult. From inside the organization, what he finds is much more crazy and cruel than he was used to. Shocking videos were filmed and avoided enemy eyes and ears, but because of the equipment causing signal interference, there was no way to send the recordings. While he was clenching his fists, determined to meet the headquarters at the base no matter how tight his eyes and ears were around him, he discovered that someone above had detected all of his actions. Blood was smeared all over his body, but his will as strong as a rock still ordered his 2 pairs of legs to run with all his might. Determined not to die and wanting to get this chip out of here at any cost, he told himself to give it to President Park Hwa-hoon at all costs. Damn it, his body was already exhausted. He convinced himself that there was only one more step left, to get closer to the gate of the Hwa-jiang team. Just before the man collapsed, the appearance of Kangoo and Iona gave him one last hope. His bloody hand quickly grabbed Kangoo's hand. With all his remaining strength, the chip of hope was given to Kangoo's hand before the man died. Looking at the small card in his hand with the words please, Kangoo's expression was so stupid that before he could understand what had just happened, he had already ascended to heaven. No matter what he called, there was no answer. What the hell happened? The person involved left a memory card for the person who was stuck and didn't know what to do. Kangoo decided to exert his omniscience power on the corpse, discovering that he was a player who had awakened for the 6th time not long ago. My brother is also quite good. The rank S gates only accept players from level 60 up, so it can be confirmed that this person is not alone because of fighting monsters. He is definitely being chased by someone to the end. With the only remaining evidence being the memory card, Kangoo had to check what was inside. Immediately, a short recorded video appeared on the screen. As soon as Kangoo opened it, his eyes immediately changed. What the fuck, this here? He couldn't believe what he just saw. Iona was so short that she couldn't see what her boss was doing, so she trembled and her face turned red like she was watching a porn movie. Oh, but it's a real, uncensored full HD porn movie. Kangoo doesn't understand why this guy would risk his life because of a clip that undulates every beat. Looking at her face, she doesn't look like the type of adulterer who is doing her best just to pass on sex videos to the next generation. Well, don't care. It's been 10,000 years since I've seen it, and it's such an exciting action movie. I just have to watch it until the end. I saw him staring at his phone so intensely. Baby Loli was also curious and wanted to watch with him, making him startled, so he quickly pretended that he was just looking at some important evidence. Just as he was about to turn back to continue drinking, a group of people appeared around him running loudly. Looking at the group of strange people wearing masks at the same time, Kangoo immediately smelled a fight. This gaudy, boxy-looking knife looks familiar no matter what. The leader of the strange group is the one with the star mark on his mask. This guy asked Kangoo if he had seen that video? The video on the memory card? Well, a little bit. Okay, he said, if you've seen it, prepare to chant. Are you crazy? Who would kill someone because of this video? Kangoo was extremely confused, feeling very unjust and not knowing what he had done wrong. Since when is watching porn movies such a serious crime? He has just reintegrated into the earth, so he hasn't had time to update the news yet. Can you forgive him? Kangoo was feeling guilty but looked at the group wearing masks standing there silently assessing him. Constantly blaming Kangoo for being rude while pretending to know nothing about it. Kangoo put his phone in his pocket. Although he didn't really understand what those people were mad about, he dared to steal the first porn video he had seen in 10,000 years. At all costs, he will protect his souvenir porn video. Kangoo raised his voice dangerously, determined not to give them the memory card. Oh, if your true nature has been revealed, then just talk to my blade. He waved his arms loudly, and the group of soldiers behind him rushed to each corner and fought hand to hand. They stretched out their arms and threw out a blade at Kangoo, resulting in a punch from the defensive power, each covering a mat. Kangoo turned around and combined his speed and power with defense to help him infect the remaining dragons. Realizing that the opponent was not a normal person, the group of masked people discussed using their ultimate move. If not at this rate, it would be easy for the flamboyant cosplayers who weren't born in the same year and month to share mats in this deserted alley. The leader had just angrily scolded Kangoo for being a monster. From behind, he reminded the entire gathering of his expertise with a punch that broke his mask prop. But at that moment, the magical aura of the masks gradually spread, causing Kangoo to retreat immediately. Iona saw a bad omen, so she stood behind and shouted to Kangoo, asking what that was. They took turns transforming into monsters with extremely unique faces. Feeling the strong chaos of the demon source, Kangoo then realized that this was the group of evil cults he was chasing. Iona looked at the enemy and wanted to crush him with meat. It approached and said it wanted to help Kangoo relieve the siege, but he refused because it was not necessary. If you only deal with this bunch of stupid idiots, you'll be a bitch. The power of swordsmanship to cut verses in half, break verses in half, exchange two graves, 999 secret techniques to capture souls. The cultists were beaten to the point of chains, and the Kangoo ostriches dragged them all and jumped into the middle of the enemy group. No matter how loud it is, Kangoo will rush in and cut off the head and tail to travel to two separate directions. Seeing that he had not died after being slashed like that, Kangoo realized that these guys possessed the recovery ability of demons, so he turned the blade even harder towards them with full force. He continued to strike with his power and speed, pushing them back more and more. When the blade was about to cut the stomach of a nearby man, Kangoo flipped his hand and slashed straight down at that man's face. The third guy foolishly took the opportunity to approach and was immediately thrown by Kangoo and slashed vertically and horizontally. The leader standing behind with his two juniors saw that scene and everyone panicked. Everyone turned and ran as soon as Kangoo looked like a demon crawling behind them. Do you really want to run now? Kangoo now uses his index finger to exert the power of the blade of the earth. Several guillotine blades emerged like inside a meat grinder, the scroll cutting them into pieces. The idiots who felt the pain of being cut apart while still alive let out a few screams of pain, tears running down for a while. After finishing handling, Kangoo brushed his hands and turned back to where Iona was standing. Up to this point, Kangoo still couldn't understand whether a porn video was worth shedding their blood or not. He immersed himself in the research for a moment and immediately immersed himself in the clip, muttering, "Maybe it's worth it. Is this the place?" Above his head, Park Hwa-eun and Eun-jo appeared from nowhere, causing Kangoo's hair to stand on end. Recognizing someone she knew, she turned around and grumbled, asking him what he was doing here. "Che Eun-jo doesn't count. This man often flies around, and if team leader Park Hwa-eun also appears, it's probably a big deal." At that moment, Park Hwa-eun realized the scene below. Only Eun-jo, who hadn't realized it yet, was hiding what she had done recently, so she accidentally appeared. Hwa-eun jumped down from the high wall and immediately asked Kangoo if she had picked up the memory card containing the video. "Memory card, do you mean this?" Seeing the memory card in Kangoo's hand, Che Eun-jo stretched out her hand and asked him to give it back to her. "I was so tired that I ran all the way here." She didn't have the strength to explain, just said I needed to use it right now. "What the fuck, what do you mean?" Kangoo's face turned red. Why did this girl want to watch a porn movie right here? Before Che Eun-jo's request, Kangoo had no way to hand over the precious video. Although in my head I also tried to think that Che Eun-jo didn't really want to watch porn. There are probably many more interesting things in there, but thinking back to Che Eun-jo openly watching sex in broad daylight, his face couldn't hide the lustfulness. So watching it alone wasn't enough. She invited him to watch it with her and said that he needed to know it before and after. Kangoo's eyes darkened and he turned away. No matter what the secret was, he still said, "Well, Having to watch this movie with a man still makes Kangoo want to refuse. As for Park Hwa-eun, after worrying about her dead teammate, she asked if Kangoo could report everything that happened. Knowing how to explain, he could only tell about the story of his own destruction of the cultists, because he did not know what happened inside. Park Hwa-eun, after hearing everything, determined that Kangoo's presence was just a coincidence, and at the same time suggested watching the video together. As she finished speaking, she observantly discovered that Chae-eun-jo was blushing on this side. Purple face. One hand covered his eyes, the other hand held the phone playing the video in front of him and asked Kangoo, "What kind of secret document is the government hiding? Kangoo, did you beat it?" But the person who can understand Chae-eun-jo's feelings right now can only helplessly explain, "It's not really the original, old lady." At this time, Park Hwa-eun explained that this video was just fake, and if you want to see the information, you must bring the chip to the decoding headquarters to be able to open it. But why does it have to be a porn movie? It's funny about this lady, only porn can be both public and secret. Even the government encourages the use of Animal World movies as cover. While the two beauties were playing question and answer questions, Kangoo fell into deep thought. So the original video was indeed related to the Ghost Association. So, damn Kangoo, you bastard already knew everything and still lied to her. Eun-jo angrily blamed Kangoo for not giving her the warning. After all, they are now colleagues. Discovering that the owner was stuffed with onions and couldn't swallow, Iona jumped out into the middle of the group and shouted, "Not to bully Kangoo. Who is this? Why do you look a bit like a child?" As soon as she heard this, Kangoo's confidant told her, she looked again and couldn't see how it was any different from a normal child. Eun-jo initially suspected that the dragon he summoned was not a tall, black, foul-smelling one that was half skin and half mist roaring in the sky. Park Hwa-eun stepped forward to interrupt the fight about what a real dragon is. Calmly said he needed to check the video as soon as possible because the other agent had died for the mission. All three people went straight to the Hwajeong Corps headquarters in Suwon, where Captain Park Jun-sok bowed his head to report the number. If everyone was present, Park Hwa-eun would announce once about the death of Agent Don-hun and boost the morale of all his subordinates. Kangoo stood behind and looked at Park Hwa-eun without shaking his voice as he made all the reasonable arrangements from the funeral to supporting the agent's family. He feels like she was born to be a soldier commander, right? After speaking, she turned to Park Jun-sok to speed up the process of decoding the video to get the information inside. Such an important matter Park Hwa-eun wanted to see with General Chong Yun-jae, but he was currently on an overseas flight to Japan to investigate the sulfur monosulfide class gate. It's easy to understand, Yun-jae is the superior and the person with the highest power in the 1st Hwajeong Army. Chong Yun-jae's power is so high that besides Baek Kong-yun in Korea, no one dares to confront him. That's okay, just see for yourself first to get the information. The video was recorded at the moment an apostle knelt at the feet of a man standing on a high platform wearing a red mask with a 5-pointed star above it. That guy was called the leader of the cult. It was reported that the preparations for the summoning were ready, and could be done quickly and could be completed within 2 weeks. In addition, this group received sponsorship from a certain party and the tribute items were all grade B or higher. After reporting, the boss looked up and smiled triumphantly, saying that soon their dream would soon come true, and if this time there was a festival in spring, he would give them a bigger reward. It's true that those brats dream high. The cardinal leader shouted that he already had the illusion of success. This is just the first step, success or failure is still far away. Don't get lost and neglect taking action. Just keep your mouth shut until the summoning work is successful and stop daydreaming. The guy who was shouted at didn't have time to stroke him but could only kneel on the ground and obey. The video ends when the agent is discovered and what happens next is known to Tom and his friends. This guy looks no different from the guy who commanded the gang that chased that agent. Perhaps the cardinal leader is composed of many people, not just one. Hearing them mention the word summoning ritual and some other guild sponsoring it, his eyes deepened as he thought of the 3 most reasonable possibilities at the moment. First, the cardinal doesn't seem to be the head of the church. Behind him there must be another person pulling the strings. Second, they are preparing to summon something terrible to Earth. And finally, the large guild in question that is sponsoring them is most likely one of the 5 major gangs. Kangoo suggested that we should start investigating from the big associations first because the intelligence has been leaked. It is very likely that the cult will hide all information and plans. Now that there are no more spies, we don't know what has changed inside. The only thing they can do to intervene is to investigate which group is supporting these evil cults. Of course, the Red Rose can be ruled out since it is the only guild that cooperates with the government. The sharp argument made Park Hwa-eun extremely admiring, even asking Kangoo if he was in the industry. Looking at his nose getting longer because of being complimented, Eun-jo felt itchy and had to poke a few words. However, the problem of how to lure that gang to come out is a difficult matter because the government and large associations have a contract to respect each other. The important moment is still Kangoo's hair growing up and jumping into a promotion with a good idea. The characteristics of the cultists are that they have little money but want to smell fragrant things, and like to target weak-level recruits but have legendary awakening rank. Mentioning the story of how many people the Red Rose had lost, he thought Eun-jo was about to get angry. But she waved her hand and told Kangoo to continue explaining, and he said we just need to set a trap. Park Hwa-eun saw that setting a trap for the Hwa-jeong team could help. Kangoo's face immediately relaxed, wanting them to lie that there was a new S-rank player hanging around in the C-rank gong, or make up a story. Red Rose is aiming for a name whose ability is not average. The false story will make the bastards take the bait, because they are beasts who cannot control their thirst for power. The plan was quite good, but Park Hwa-eun was afraid that it would not be successful, because that side had simply discovered a spy. Park Hwa-eun sat and looked at Kangoo, who was still sure of his plan, not at all confused by the information from the captain of Team 3, only seeing him smiling confidently that they were an evil cult that was hungry for power and almost dead. If something changes, just keep going as usual. He squeezed his hand, already having magic power pumped into him, so he couldn't easily refuse. Kangoo looked up, showing off his apricot face, convincing Park Hwa-eun that if he couldn't catch her, he would still have some clues. So who will be the bait? A low-level player who possesses high-level superpowers, is already famous, or is a member of a large guild? As soon as she asked, Eun-jo immediately said that she didn't want the Red Rose team members to take risks, so don't even think about borrowing someone from there. After all, the guild is seriously lacking people, so anyone can call her selfish. But Kangoo's smile became more and more unethical. He already had the perfect actor's prey. The person Kangoo targeted for the plan was now wandering on the road. He returned to the old house and put his head next to a woman with her eyes closed. He sat like that from late at night until the sunlight shone through the window. Si-hun, with sunken eyes and tired after staying up all night, still held his mother's hand tightly without letting go, causing Kangoo, who was hiding in the bushes, observing every move, couldn't help but groan and exclaim a few words. Watching Si-hun until his eyes were tired and only seeing him hanging around the house taking care of his sick mother, he blamed himself for why he chose this idiot to be the main character at that time. Anyway, the idea he came up with was so great. After a week of planning to spread information about Si-hun, it spread to the trend, not like a rocket but like anyone on the street would know and talk about him being a famous rookie. That's pretty good. Of course, he wouldn't be able to do it alone, not to mention thanks to the help of Vice President and hacker Park Yun-hoo. The dirty content creators plan to take the fire out of someone's hands. It's Si-hun who's been covered all over the online community, but Park Hwa-eun, who's straightforward, would never do that, and Eun-jo, who only knows how to give orders. After countless days of looking after his sick mother, Kang Ji-yu finally waited until Si-hun dressed up to hunt monsters. Luckily, he was able to change this boring place. In front of the C-rank gate in Mak-gong town, Si-hun now gathered with the Starfruit Tree brothers. As soon as the exciting greeting ended, everyone started asking about Sella, worried that something was bothering her. Sol-ah said that Kang Ji-yu hadn't come home for a week straight. Even though they often exchanged messages, Kang Ji-yu always dodged when asked what he was doing. The coldness makes Sol-ah very uneasy. Eun-bai leans over to comfort her. It's okay, sister. He probably has a reason for not coming home. He usually comes home early. Unbai's words touched a certain corner. Sola tightened her grip on her stick, muttering to herself, wondering if Kong Ji-yu had forgotten the taste of the kimchi stew she cooked and went out to eat pho. Or worse, Kong Ji-yu has a crush on some girl so he doesn't want to go home anymore. Unbai felt so stressed that she decided to drag Sola back to the real world. How could he ignore someone as beautiful as her? It should be the opposite. Unbai turned to Kong Ji-yu, who was still young and in good shape, and had been sharing a house with a beautiful young girl for a long time without getting any attention, so she probably went out to relieve herself. As soon as he said that, Si-hun interrupted, telling Sola not to believe the nonsense that this child screenwriter interpreted too far. Kong Ji-yu must have his own reasons. High-level players like Kong Ji-yu will be much different from them. If their group wants to know what the higher system can do, they have to put all their effort into this gate. This profound encouragement helped Sola regain her will in an instant. With a spirit of enthusiastic greeting, the whole group entered the gate and prepared to feed the monsters with onions. At the same time, Kong Ji-yu disguised himself as a player and heard the entire conversation. He was secretly happy because everyone had reached level 20 and completed the third consciousness. Even though that level was still quite young, it was still a remarkable progress. What's worrying here is that Kong Ji-yu hasn't come home for a week. Seeing Sola worried about his mysterious disappearance makes him feel guilty. Not to mention, even Iona must be very upset because she lacks his support. Not being able to eat well and sleep well for a week made him feel very frustrated. Kong Ji-yu scratched his head and told himself he had to quickly deal with this damn thing. In the desert, Si-hun's group is now teaming up to destroy a soldier after Tetsu controls the enemy with his trademark shield. The monster's punch was quite powerful, but he still resisted it quite well, and laughed. After all, it was just a stupid thing. Tetsu threw the shield high, causing the monster to lose its footing, then slammed it on the ground, causing it to panic and almost fall. Tetsu succeeded, distracting the enemy and leading to the next stage belonging to swordsman Si-hun. Sella, from behind, supported Si-hun's strength and used the dragon sword technique to cut across his body, combined with the flying dragon technique, which successfully made the dragon vomit blood and growl in pain. It bit bitterly. He clenched his teeth and changed his target to Si-hun, who had just slashed him, but he turned around and used the power of the lightning spear to knock the dragon away with a silent scream. There was also Unbi, who took down the role of protector and secondary damage, while the monster was filled with smoke and fell headfirst onto the ground to eat a bunch of garlic. The soldier was knocked out so quickly that they didn't believe in their own strength, but Unbi carefully reminded them not to be subjective, even though the C-rank monster was quite strong. Over and over again, they kicked Kongu over. I don't understand why he alone could fight with these guys without being able to do anything. Si-hun laughed. Although this group was new, within a month they had leveled up enough to hunt and kill a dragon of some kind. It's all thanks to you, Si-hun. Before forming the team I felt you had potential, but I didn't expect you to be really great. Unbi stood below excitedly and added, Si-hun was like the male lead. This made him feel so shy. After that, we all went to collect Manor rocks and gossiped. Sola said that she could sell the blood condensed in her heart as a raw material for medicine at a high price, so there was more money to be made, which was great. Not far away, Kongu continued to lurk. The outstanding progress of the students made him unable to hide his pride. They clearly knew their mission and devoted themselves to promoting their strength. Now everyone understands their role and moves according to their personal advantage. Sola can also create buffs, so she's still useful when no one needs healing. His favorite students have finally graduated, no need for him to worry anymore. Kongu still stood on the rocky mountain silently watching and thinking about this matter. The thing that bothered him the most was that the cultists had not yet made any move to attack. Are they being cautious? Fat is offered to the cat's mouth like this, but the cat still hasn't drooled yet? Kongu firmly believes that the cultists cannot resist the delicious bait. He had been in hell long enough to understand that those greedy people could not resist such a great attraction. They stayed motionless for a strangely long time, so they could grasp the situation. Konggu used the power of light to observe the surrounding area. He probed every corner of the gate, passing through the stupid monsters. Sure enough, not far away, strangers appeared. They skewered Buri's group as easily as hitting their noses and did not even bother to collect real ghost stones but rushed towards Si-hun at coffin speed. But the prey was nowhere but the innocent baby Si-hun that he entered the Red Rose. Ready-made. Boom! With 2 fatal sword strikes, Si-hun himself defeated Chan to the surprise of the whole team. Tae Su said that no matter how many times he witnessed it, it was still difficult for him to believe that Si-hun defeated Chan without Eun-bai's support. Oh my god, Eun-bai is worried that if she stays like that she will become useless. Everyone flattered Si-hun, making him feel embarrassed. Suddenly Si-hun discovered a Chun lurking behind the rocky mountain, not far behind Sayla. The group was still shouting at each other and hastily formed a formation where Barry was slashed across his body. The whole group gasped in surprise, but Si-hun threw a look of surprise and unwelcoming to the person in front of him. Kim Jeong-ho bathed in the blood that spewed out from Chan, smirking and calling Si-hun's name. You don't like it, so why do you have to be lucky? Tetsu turned around confused and asked if he was someone you know, and isn't this guy the vice president of the Mia Guild? Then the whole team turned their eyes to Si-hun, waiting for an explanation. The son of the owner of Mia Electronics Corporation is also the vice president of the Mia Association, Kim Jeong-ho, who was born with a shining golden spoon. But this guy always has to hide his strength in the eyes of the rich. It's not because he's too strong that he has to hide it, but Jeong-ho has extremely mediocre abilities. Cannot even clear the test ball, unlike his father who is a top ranker in Korea. However, using his father's technology and money, Jeong-ho armored himself and enhanced himself into a true Batman. Jeong-ho walked to Hoang Street like an invited person, confidently telling him he was coming to hunt. As soon as they ate Si-hun's bucket of cold water and told them to go away and check, both sides cursed back and forth, making the Tetsu group look at each other not understanding what was going on. Si-hun gently roared, "Who are you to say you're my brother?" Well, Jeong-ho shows a disdainful smile. You can't be considered a normal brother because you have dirty blood flowing in you. The words of the crazy young master who made Si-hun pull out his sword only made Jeong-ho laugh out loud. Are you going to fight with me? His foot kicked Chan's body on the ground, showing an aggressive look, making Si-hun have to carefully observe. There are also monsters in this place and he doesn't want to waste his effort. Ah yes, there have been rumors about you lately. Jeong-ho turned to anger Si-hun at all costs. People say you have an extremely special ability that they estimate is at least, rank S is too good for me. Si-hun didn't understand what his dirty brother said, but smelled danger so his hand on the sword tightened more and more. Jeong-ho showed a hungry face, smiled and said it was a coincidence because I was in need of a sacrifice like you. This group is also quite good, saving me the trouble of having to go to many places. Sella's group huddled together, saying that this guy is the high-level player that people are talking about, the one who specializes in hunting new players. As soon as Tetsu moved forward to shield Sella, Jeong-ho immediately looked at her with the greed of an old man. The few words he spit out, "I didn't sacrifice that girl, but she has a lot of uses," made Si-hun unable to keep calm and took his sword and rushed through the crowd, wanting to cut the guy in front of him to ease the chaos, but only with a flick of Jeong-ho's hand knocked Si-hun back several meters. The obvious difference in ability made Si-hun even more confused. No matter how much the difference in ability, that trash should not have been able to counterattack simply at such a close range. Seeing the bodyguard behind him moving forward and swinging punches at Si-hun, Jeong-ho stopped him and activated the absolute defense state of the sword in his hand. He used lightning speed to rush straight towards Si-hun, wanting to pick him alone. The young master's face was like a murderous demon with a gleeful smile and he smashed his sword harshly at Si-hun, forcing him to continuously defend and step back. Behind, Jeong-ho's attack was like a storm, but Si-hun just blocked it and didn't fight back until he blocked a very close attack and then immediately raised his hand and swung it down. Jeong-ho did not recognize Si-hun's move, but the arm holding the sword still blocked and knocked him away easily. Taking advantage of Si-hun's loss of momentum, Jiang Hoan quickly used jet boots to help him crash straight into the rocky mountain. Tesu, Un Bai and Sella were startled and screamed. Behind the dust and smoke, Si-hun began to realize that the U-sword technique was not performed by Jiang Hoan himself, but the sword he held was controlling him. On this side, Jiang Hoan played a cat-and-mouse game and asked Si-hun how he dared to attack him when he had that dirty blood in him. This liar is a living proof of the saying that if you have money you can buy money. The equipment on the body is an absolute defense system made based on high technology from the Mia Group.